Finally back. Man, it's a lot of technical. What up, Trey Willis? What up, boy? It's good to see you, man. Anyway, a lot of technical difficulties just trying to get this mug to start, but I'm glad we here. If you are new to this is A-Bar Jones, your boy, breaking down Coffee Black, which is a song I just did, just doing a mixing right now. Connecting that to the thing in Oregon, third wave coffee in that movement, hip hop ed, urban ed, my beliefs as a follower of Jesus, man, a whole bunch of stuff. So let's get into it. What up, KNF773? Welcome for coming. If you're new, I just explained what it was so you can rewind it, but we're gonna get into it, man. So I got the idea for this track probably like 4 or 5 years ago. I really started getting into coffee. It came about like in college, I would drink or whatever just to stay up to study. But the more I started drinking it, the more I wanted to figure out what made some coffee taste good, what made some coffee taste bad. So anyways, I got into it. I realized that the thing that really matters about a coffee is not necessarily what you put into it, but where it comes from and what it's been through. So man, over the years of really getting into that, I realized like, yo, man, I love coffee. I love coffee culture, man, and I'm excited about it. My wife might say, what up? Lil Palea 15, welcome for coming. My wife might say I love it too much, but she bears the grind with your boy because a lot of our budget goes just toward coffee stuff. But I spend a lot of time working on my craft, just trying to get better. Working on getting a position as a barista at a local coffee shop this summer, plan on roasting, have a whole vision for what I believe, I could do in the city with the arts and coffee and, but we'll get into that later. What you need to know right now is that I loved it so much I wrote a song about it. And that's what's playing in the background. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but, we just rocking with y'all, just trying to let you hear a little bit of that. But also I want to connect, this idea of, man, what third wave coffee people do and how I've realized over time that it connects to a lot of the other things that are going on in my life. So, man, as a kid growing up, I always was a weird person. I was always into like nerdy specialty things. I didn't really fit in the neighborhood that I grew up in Whitehaven, in Feronia Square. What up, Feronia? And it was strange for me to be into the things I was in at the time, like Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, Beyblades. Like me and my homies would just do all this nerdy stuff, and we were like the only people in the apartment complex who were really into it, but we really enjoyed it. And so I've always thought that, it was kind of my role in life to be this specialty niche kind of guy. Like I love jazz. You can see, a bunch of the vinyls just standing around, but I mean, I love jazz. I love strange music. And so when I create music, it's always been kind of weird. But when I got to college and really started getting into coffee, I started seeing some unique things in like the way people in specialty coffee think about coffee, right? So when you think about coffee, a lot of times people push it as this thing that, you need the best cream, the best sugar, the most amount of caramel and all that kind of stuff that makes for, some delicious coffee. But the more that you drink coffee and the more you get into it, you start to realize that it's not really what you put into it that makes so much of a difference, so much as where it's come from. Like for instance, I got this Thunder Ghost coffee I just got from Kenya. It's delicious. I don't put anything in it. I just enjoy it the way it is. And I realized, man, that there's something beautiful about a coffee that comes out the dirt, that goes through the process of being dried and, de-hulled, comes to you, somebody roasts it, and then you do your best to just kind of pull out those characteristics. And that's really what the whole third wave culture is about, is like providing the best experience. You all right, baby? Checking on my wife. My wife is more important than this Periscope. So I just got to check in with her. You good, baby? Cool. Anyway, man, yeah, so just making sure that you actually get to taste the characteristics that come with what the coffee is created as. Man, and I realized that as a weird person, right, those characteristics seem strange to a lot of people. But when you think about the idea as a whole, the idea that, strange characteristics, unique characteristics add value, it becomes something that actually gives me something in common with a lot of my students in the way I like to teach. So the next thing that the song is connected to besides third wave coffee is actually the type of students that I teach, right? Like I teach African-American students in Orange Mound. And a lot of those students have the same kind of pressures that I used to feel like I went through as a child. And also I kind of put on coffee, right? Like I would be like, hey, this coffee's straight, but for it to really be good, it needs to get this cream, this sugar. My son is crying. I'm going to go check on him. Be right back. So, bro. We back. Anyway, son's all right. He was crying. I think he had gas. That's the thing babies have a lot. And now he doesn't. But yeah, man. So I felt all this pressure for my students to have the same type of cream and sugar added to the way they speak, the way they dress, the type of things that they're interested in. I was like, yo, what if the same way that this Kenyan coffee is better when you enjoy it on its own and make the process of creating or, brewing it more about pulling out the intricate and innate characteristics, then what up, Tail 9? Thanks for coming. What if you make the process of making this coffee more about where it comes from and the natural characteristics than making it fit, this like cream and sugar idea? What if I made that what I do with my students? And that's kind of where hip hop ed comes in, because I realize with my students, they live, think, and breathe hip hop. I mean, and so do I, right? Like I grew up. What's good, fam? Thanks for coming, man. What are you into, bro? Do you teach? Do you brew coffee, man? Like I would love to get to know some of the things you're interested in. If you're new to the video, we're talking about the ways that third wave coffee, hip hop education, music, and a couple other things kind of all tie together. But yeah, man, so I realized that, my kids are under the same pressure that I used to put on coffee. And that if I made my teaching method more about brewing or pulling out their natural, beautiful characteristics than fitting them in this cream and sugar box, man, we would have a way better experience and the world would be better for it, right? So I started putting more hip hop into my teaching. I started speaking a little bit differently with them. Not all the time. I still want them to know how to be able to engage with, yeah, man. That's what's up. Oh, what up, Al? How you doing? Good to see you, bro. But yeah, I just wanted to give them some of the ways to engage in the things that they're naturally interested in. And so, man, what I found was that in my classroom, man, my students can be some of the most intelligent, most dynamic, thoughtful, critical thinking students, but it's only when the teaching and the pedagogy begins with the belief that where they come from and what they bring to the table is valuable. So if I don't start off with that, then a lot of times I end up having to add a whole bunch of filler, add a whole bunch of my ideas, other people's ideas, and get them to kind of regurgitate that in order for anything valuable to happen. But when I start off with what they have, value that, and then kind of make my teaching process about pulling out their natural characteristics, I think that, man, the conversation and the learning is just so much more beautiful. Similar to the way that my coffee is more beautiful when I focus on the natural characteristics instead of just kind of doing whatever and then putting in what I want. I'm more focused on pulling out what's already there than putting in something that I think is good. And man, not only is there pressure on my students, I experienced that pressure growing up. A lot of my friends did. A lot of African Americans do. A lot of minorities do. I mean, any oppressed people group, really any person who's going through life has experienced the pressure to kind of conform to the things that life has. And I think that if you spend some time enjoying coffee, like the center goes right here, that you can learn a couple things, man. You can learn a couple things about how, man, you're beautiful, how the things that God has made are beautiful, and you don't really need to add a whole lot to them to enjoy that beauty. So the last thing I wanted to connect this to, because me and wifey have a date night. The last thing I wanted to connect this to, man, was this thing in Oregon, right? Like, I'm watching the news and I'm seeing a bunch of, ranchers out in Oregon who are white, who are really frustrated, right, about the state of their lives. They can't farm. They don't have the ability to get the food they need for their cattle, provide for their families. And so they turn to, the logical thing. When you're frustrated, you're in a corner, you need food, you bust out whatever weapons you have and you go to whatever means are necessary to provide for you and yours. That makes sense. I understand that. As a Christian, as a black man who's like practiced nonviolence for a long time, obviously I think there's a different way to do that, but I understand that because that's how I feel a lot of the time. What was weird to me was the perception and the value that was given to that expression of that response, right? When those dudes responded to their oppression in the way that was in line with who they were, where they come from, their natural characteristics, the natural human response, the natural flavor notes that one might find if one is put through the type of experiences that those ranchers were put through, the world applauded. Or if they didn't applaud, I feel like in some type of way, they at least understood and empathized with what was going on. But when my students who go through oppression every day express their frustration with the state of their lives, right? They're not met with understanding oftentimes. They're not met with empathy. They're not met with diplomacy. They're met with immediate and brute force, right? Like I think about that young lady who was slammed down in her classroom because of a cell phone. Or I think about Tamir Rice, who was shot and who was justified, apparently, in his shooting because the possibility that he might be playing with a gun. Like there's so many stories, right? There's so many people. I think about Sandra Bland. I think about so many human beings who have been put down mercilessly simply because of responding in the natural way that a human being responds when they're put under the process of oppression. And I think about how my students are told to add all these extra ideas, right? The ideas of nonviolence, the ideas of respectability politics, all these things, this cream and this sugar is being poured into them in the effort to create something that's palatable to society. But I think society in a lot of ways has a lot to learn instead from the way these students respond. Because last week we did a writing prompt, right? I asked them, what's wrong with the world and how can we fix it? And so many of my students responded so compassionately. Like they responded with, man, the worst problem in the world is ignorance. And we need more educators to fix these problems. The worst problem in the world is violence in my neighborhood. And if we had more after school problems or more after school programs, people could do other things, or people had opportunities. One student said if people had opportunities, then they wouldn't do violence, because I think a lot of violence comes from people not being able to live out their dreams. Like these are beautiful thoughts. And instead of putting all these things on our students, what if we took the time to simply learn about them, figure out where they came from, valued them like we do with this coffee, right? And then put a lot of time and effort into figuring out the perfect recipe, the perfect brewing process for pulling out those characteristics and then allowing the world to appreciate their beauty. That's what happens in third wave coffee. That's what happens with any like hipstery coffee shop that you go to. That's what happens every morning when I, pull out my Kalita Wave or my Phoenix 70 or my V60 or these other things that have numbers and words. And I, put it on my table and I brew coffee, right? That's what happens. But I really think, man, if we would do that with human beings, instead of just doing it with things that are grown by human beings, that we would have a world that experienced the beauty God intended, instead of a world where people are forced to kind of water themselves down and add cream and sugar to adjust to the palate of society. So, that's the Periscope in a nutshell. I would love to hear some of your thoughts, your responses. But before we bounce, I want to run the track through one more time because, I'm excited about it. I'm super duper excited about it. It'll be dropping MLK Day. We got to do a couple more mixing pieces. The possibility of my cousin getting down on bass is also, looming in the distance. So we're seeing what's up with that. But, man, I had a lot of people help me with this. Can't wait to shout them out. But in the meantime, I just want to play this track for you guys before I get ready to dip.
So many faces I know.
Oh, I forgot to mention, I produced this track. This is the first time I've ever sung on a track that I produced. So it's pretty exciting because, man, I'm just taking risks. But I really feel like, man, when I wake up and I know I'm still alive, that I gotta thank the Lord for what He's given me, and I gotta do something with it. So I've been thinking about producing for a while, and I was like, man, I'm just gonna do it. Willis, yeah, man. Trick or Trey, appreciate you, bro. So I guess I can get into some of the people who kind of helped in the process of making this. My little brother, Vesselized Productions, Julian Henderson, has been doing all the mixing on this track. Derek Simpson, Homage Beats, wrote the original track, and I ended up not using that, and it evolved into this. Hope in me, I better see me with clutch rope in me. But I better grind, I got bolts in me, 365, never the bolts in me, Jones. Homie Tom Egler, big brother, taught me everything I know about music. Added some drums on the bottom. Man, appreciate that, fam. Peter Roberts came through and laid some keys down, so you'll hear those come in right here. Yeah, he went all the way in. You'll hear that some more. But my little brother Daniel is doing harmonies in the background, and my sister Dominique is also doing harmonies in the back.
Got me coffee black, a whole pot. God save the salt of the earth.
Yo, that's the whole plot.
What's better than death?
A whole lot.
What if I sever my breath?
I hope not. Yo, man, if you want some more, I'll be dropping the official track MLK Day on my SoundCloud. You can see me at A-Bar Jones. I'll be on Snapchat, whatever, just talking about it. But again, if you missed it, this was a video of me breaking down Coffee Black, what it means, how it connects to third wave coffee, what I learned from that, how it connects to, urban ed and this thing in Oregon. Man, I just really believe that God desires that what He created be valued because of what He's done in it, and not because of what we can do to it. You feel me? It's about what you can pull out of it and not what you can put into it, man. And I'm trying to teach that to my students, trying to teach that to myself every day, teach that to my son, and really believe that we're all beautiful, and man, life is really about trying to see what that beauty can be, and not about trying to conform it into this image. What I'm saying? But anyway, Bar Jones, appreciate y'all. The song is dropping next Monday, man, so stay tuned. If you're interested in more, follow me, invite your followers, replay this video. It'll be up on YouTube in a little bit. But love y'all, man. I'm out. Solideo.